The iron is cold against her throat. Berenice is 29 years old, and she can feel the weight of the collar pressing against her windpipe with every breath, can taste the rust and old blood that clings to metal that has circled 100 necks before hers. She was, until 17 days ago, Queen of Cappadocia, ruler of a kingdom that had stood independent for 3 centuries, commander of an army that had defied Rome for 7 years. She was the woman who had looked Emperor Tiberius's legate in the eye and told him that Cappadocia would burn before it bowed. Now she kneels on stone floors in a Roman camp, her wrists chained behind her back, her hair shorn to stubble because long hair on a captive queen is considered a weapon, something she might use to strangle herself before Rome can display her properly. Around her, she can hear the sounds of a military camp at dawn, orders barked in Latin, horses being led to water, the clatter of equipment being packed for the long march west, the march to Rome, the march to the triumph. The cell smells of urine and old straw and something else underneath, something sweet and rotting that she has learned not to think about. The previous occupant of this cell did not survive long enough to be moved. They dragged the body out 3 days ago, but the smell remains, a reminder of what happens to captives who stop being useful. A guard watches from outside the iron bars. His eyes move over her body with an assessment she has become familiar with over the past 17 days, the calculation that Roman soldiers perform when examining captured women. Not lust, exactly. Something colder. An evaluation of function, of use, of what purposes she might serve during the months before the triumph, and what condition she needs to be in when she finally walks in chains through the streets of Rome. She is beginning to understand that the triumph itself is not the punishment. The triumph is merely the finale. What happens before the triumph, during the months of captivity and preparation, during the long journey from the edges of empire to its heart, that is where the real punishment occurs. The triumph is public humiliation, lasting a single day. What precedes it is systematic destruction lasting as long as Rome requires. A man approaches the cell. He is perhaps 45 years old, wearing the armor of a senior officer, his face bearing the particular expression of bored cruelty that Berenice has learned to recognize in Roman military professionals. He does not introduce himself. He does not need to. The guards snap to attention when he approaches, and that tells her everything about his rank. "You are the Cappadocian," he says. It is not a question. "The one who killed the legate's nephew at the Battle of Mazaka." "I gave the order," Berenice replies. Her voice comes out steadier than she expected. "My archers carried it out. He died bravely, if that matters to Rome." "It does not." The officer studies her through the bars with the same assessing gaze the guards have been applying. "What matters to Rome is that you will walk in Germanicus's triumph 8 months from now. What matters to Rome is that you will be displayed as proof of Roman victory, evidence that even queens who defy the legions are eventually brought to heel. What matters to Rome is what happens to you between now and then. 8 months. The words settle into Berenice's mind with physical weight. 8 months of captivity before she is paraded through Rome and then disposed of. 8 months of being whatever Rome decides she should be. "What happens to me between now and then?" she asks. The officer smiles. It is not a pleasant expression. "You will be prepared," he says. "Prepared for the triumph. Prepared to perform your role properly. This preparation takes many forms. Some of them you will find educational. Some of them you will find less so." He gestures to the guard, who unlocks the cell door and steps inside. The guard grabs Berenice's arm and hauls her to her feet, his grip hard enough to leave bruises. "The general wishes to see you," the officer says. "He has specific plans for the Cappadocian queen. You should feel honored. Most captives are processed through standard procedures. You have attracted personal attention. Personal attention. The words carry weight that Berenice does not yet fully understand, but that makes the guard's grip on her arms seem almost gentle by comparison. She is led from the cell into morning light that hurts her eyes after days of darkness, through the ordered chaos of a Roman military camp preparing for movement, past soldiers who stop their work to stare at her, past other captives chained in lines awaiting transport, past wagons loaded with the wealth of her conquered kingdom. She sees her crown in one of those wagons, the diadem she wore when she addressed her people, when she led her army, when she believed that courage and determination could hold back the greatest military power the world had ever known. It sits in a pile of other treasures, gold and silver and jewels stripped from her palace, from her temples, from the bodies of her nobles who died defending what was theirs. She does not cry. She has learned already that tears accomplish nothing and reveal weakness that Romans will exploit. But she memorizes the wagon's position. She memorizes the faces of the soldiers guarding it. She memorizes everything because information is the only weapon she has left, and she intends to use it. What you are about to learn has been systematically sanitized from the histories that celebrate Roman triumph as glorious spectacle. The poets who described golden chariots and cheering crowds chose not to examine what happened in the camps and prisons and ships where captured royalty spent the months before their public display. The historians who praise Roman military achievement preferred not to document the specific methods used to transform proud monarchs into broken prisoners suitable for parading. Tonight, you will learn what the triumph actually required. Not the single day of public celebration that the textbooks describe, but the months of preparation that preceded it. You will learn what Roman soldiers did to captured queens, kings, and princes during the long period between capture and display. You will learn why some royal captives arrived in Rome already destroyed, while others were kept in conditions that preserved their appearance while shattering everything else. You will learn about the officials whose job it was to manage royal prisoners, the specialists in what Rome called preparation, who understood exactly how to break a monarch's spirit without breaking their body. You will learn about the hierarchy of captives, why some were destined for execution after the triumph, while others were permitted to survive, and what determined which fate a prisoner received. You will learn about the specific practices that sources describe only in euphemisms, the hospitality that officers provided to their most important prisoners, the entertainment that royal captives were expected to provide during the journey to Rome. You will learn what happened to the women and children of conquered royal families, why daughters were sometimes more valuable than sons, and what purposes Rome found for royalty, too young to pose a political threat. You will learn why Cleopatra chose suicide over allowing herself to be taken to Rome, why she understood that death was preferable to what awaited her in Octavian's triumph. You will learn what happened to the royal captives, who did not have Cleopatra's opportunity to escape, who were forced to experience what she avoided through the asp's venom. Subscribe if you want to understand the darkness behind Rome's most celebrated ritual. Comment below telling me where you are watching from, because Berenice is being led through that camp right now, toward a general who has specific plans for her, toward 8 months of preparation that will test everything she is, and I am going to tell you exactly what those plans were. But before I reveal what the Romans did to Berenice and the other captured queens who walked in their triumphs, I need to take you back. I need to show you how the triumph functioned, why it required what it required, and what made the capture of royalty so valuable to Roman generals seeking glory. Because you cannot understand what happened to Berenice without understanding the system that processed her. The Roman triumph was not merely a parade. It was a religious ceremony, a political statement, and a psychological weapon all combined into a single overwhelming spectacle. A general who celebrated a triumph was, for that single day, something approaching a god, his face painted red like Jupiter's statue, his person considered sacred, his achievements proclaimed to the entire Roman world. But triumphs were not granted easily. They required specific qualifications that the Senate enforced with increasing strictness as Rome's power grew. A general seeking a triumph needed to have held proper command authority. He needed to have killed at least 5,000 enemies in a single battle. He needed to have expanded Roman territory or achieved a significant strategic victory. And he needed captives. Not just any captives. Common prisoners of war could be sold as slaves, distributed as rewards to soldiers, disposed of in whatever manner seemed convenient. But a triumph required special captives, visible proof of Roman dominance over peoples who had dared to resist. The higher the status of the captive, the greater the glory reflected on the general who had captured them. A captured general was valuable. A captured king was more valuable. A captured queen, walking in chains through the streets of Rome, her royal dignity reduced to public spectacle, her body displayed as proof that Roman power respected no status and recognized no limit that was the ultimate trophy. This created specific incentives in how royal captives were treated. They needed to survive until the triumph. They needed to be recognizable as royalty, their status visible to the crowds who would judge the general's achievement. They needed to be broken enough to walk in chains without resisting, without attempting escape or suicide, without doing anything that might disrupt the carefully choreographed display. But they also needed to be accessible to those who had captured them. Roman officers who had risked their lives conquering distant kingdoms believed they had earned certain rewards. The general who would celebrate the triumph believed he had earned the right to sample his trophies before displaying them publicly. The soldiers who had fought and bled for Rome believed they deserved compensation for their sacrifices. These beliefs shaped everything that happened to royal captives between capture and triumph. The system that processed them was not random cruelty. It was organized, methodical, refined over generations of Roman conquest. Specific officials were responsible for different aspects of captive management. Specific protocols governed who had access to which prisoners, when, and for what purposes. Specific hierarchies determined which captives were reserved for the general's personal use and which could be distributed among officers who had earned the privilege. The most valuable captives, the kings and queens who would be the centerpieces of the triumph, received special treatment. They were kept separate from common prisoners. They were fed adequately and housed in conditions that prevented disease and disfigurement. Their bodies were maintained in conditions suitable for public display, but their minds were considered fair targets for whatever attention their captors wished to provide. A queen, who arrived in Rome too broken to walk, would be useless. A queen who arrived still defiant, still proud, still displaying the royal dignity that had characterized her reign, would fail to demonstrate Roman dominance. The ideal captive was someone visibly royal, but visibly defeated. Someone whose bearing showed that they had been a monarch, but whose eyes showed that they understood they were now property. Achieving this balance required expertise. It required time. It required the 8 months between capture and triumph that Berenice was about to experience. And it required men who understood how to break royalty without destroying them. The general's tent was larger than the house Berenice had grown up in before she became queen. Silk hangings covered the canvas walls. Carpets from Persia cushioned the floor. Furniture that would not have been out of place in a Roman senator's villa was arranged around a central space where braziers burned sweet-smelling wood despite the morning warmth. Gaius Germanicus Julius Caesar sat behind a desk covered with maps and dispatches, the morning light from an opened tent flap illuminating features that Berenice had seen on coins and statues throughout the eastern Mediterranean. He was younger than she expected, perhaps 35, with the athletic build of someone who had spent his life on campaign. His expression was intelligent, calculating, and utterly without mercy. "The Queen of Cappadocia," he said. His voice was pleasant, cultivated, the voice of a man raised in the highest circles of Roman society. "I have been looking forward to meeting you. Your resistance cost me 2 years and 11,000 soldiers. That is not something I forget." "I was defending my kingdom," Berenice replied. "You were invading it. We both did what our positions required. Your kingdom no longer exists. Cappadocia is now a Roman province. Your nobles are dead or enslaved. Your army is destroyed. Your treasury is packed in wagons for transport to Rome. Everything you were, everything you represented, has been erased from the world." He paused, letting the words settle. "Except you. You kept me alive for the triumph. I kept you alive because you were the most valuable thing I captured in 7 years of war. A queen who defied Rome for nearly a decade, who killed a legate's nephew, who made speeches comparing herself to Boudica and promising to drive the legions into the sea. When you walk in my triumph, chained and broken, everyone in Rome will understand what I have accomplished. And after the triumph?" Germanicus smiled. It was the smile of a man discussing an interesting problem, not a human life. "That depends on many factors. Your behavior during the coming months, your value as a political symbol, your usefulness for other purposes." He gestured, and a servant appeared with wine. The general drank without offering any to Berenice. "You should understand something about